It's hard to imagine that now because we're so far removed from it that it's almost hard to just said I want to be number one. Little did I know that I would,
The mere fact that an 18-time Grand Slam champion felt a pressing need to articulate this out loud with such intensity is truly telling. Speaking with such urgency unprompted right before a completely different tournament proves that the Dubai run genuinely stunned those who have seen every highlight the sport has to offer. Only a few days ago, the atmosphere surrounding the sport shifted. Navratilova sat down for a revealing interview with the official tour website on March 2, 2026, just ahead of the big tournaments in Indian Wells and Miami. I firmly believe that sports have always served as a catalyst for social change and genuine progress. The moment Alex Eala's name was mentioned in the conversation, the reaction was instantaneous. She is a crafty left-hander who utilizes a level of variety in her game that most players her age simply cannot replicate. While she is incredibly smart on the court, her serve requires more power, and her physical build needs strengthening to withstand the elite competition. This interview took place exactly 2 weeks after Eala stepped onto the center court in Dubai, while ranked 47th in the world. She defeated a top 10 player in a high-stakes tiebreak thriller and transformed a 5,000-seat stadium into a massive national celebration. It all happened within a 24-hour window that caught the entire tennis community completely off guard. You should subscribe now because the full story behind Navratilova's reaction only starts to make sense when you see the reality of what occurred in Dubai.
Ko pa mapaniwala. Maraming salamat sa suporta. Sana patuloy yung support.
To truly grasp why Navratilova's words carried so much weight, you have to travel back 1 month before the Dubai event. Think back to Melbourne Park in January 2026, where the Australian Open was shattering records with a single-day attendance of over 101,696 spectators. Interestingly, the most electric and chaotic scene of the entire 2-week tournament was not happening on one of the main show courts. All eyes were fixed on the humble Court 6. Alex Eala was slated to play her first-round match against the American Alicia Parks in that very spot. What awaited her was far from a standard professional tennis crowd. Fans were overflowing into the walkways and the queues to get a glimpse of her stretched back for more than an hour. Hundreds of Filipino supporters never even made it through the gates because the demand was so overwhelming. The rhythmic chants of Alex's name continued to echo through the grounds long after the match had concluded. Even though she lost the match 0-6, 6-3, 6-2, the final score seemed irrelevant compared to the massive spectacle unfolding around her. Martina Navratilova and Lindsay Davenport were observing the scene from the Tennis Channel broadcast desk. What they witnessed that day clearly left them both unsettled and deeply impressed. Davenport remarked that the tournament organizers had drastically underestimated the gravity of the situation. She argued that Eala needed to be scheduled on a much larger show court given her status as the most famous female athlete from the Philippines. Davenport emphasized that she is one of the most iconic figures to ever emerge from their sporting history, and that this crowd chaos was entirely predictable. By the time the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships rolled around in February 2026, the debate over match scheduling flared up once again. Alex Eala was a newcomer to the tournament, having never competed in this particular event before. She arrived on the grounds ranked 47th in the world, a career peak that already made her the highest-ranked Filipino in the history of the women's tour. In a bold move, organizers gave her the primetime night slot on center court for her second-round clash against world number 8, Jasmine Paolini, on February 17th. Every fan packed into that 5,000-seat arena understood the gravity of the challenge, as Paolini was far more than just a typical top 10 opponent. She arrived as a seasoned veteran and a former champion of the Dubai tournament itself. Her resume was formidable, featuring 2 Grand Slam final appearances at both the French Open and Wimbledon in 2024. She possessed significantly more experience under the bright lights of high-pressure night sessions than a 20-year-old making her debut on this stage. If you looked only at the statistics on paper, the match seemed to have a very predictable and one-sided conclusion. However, the reality on center court that night was anything but ordinary, as Eala stormed through the first set 6-1 in a display of sheer dominance. She successfully landed 67% of her first serves and won a staggering 86% of those points without facing a single break point. For a young player whose serve had often been called her primary weakness, that opening set was an undeniable statement of intent. The narrative shifted dramatically in the second set as Eala built a 5-3 lead and stood on the brink of victory with match points. Paolini relied on years of top-level experience to save those points and claw her way back to even the score at 5 games apiece. The veteran then broke Eala's serve as she tried to close out the match, forcing a tiebreak where the first 8 points were all incredible winners. It was a sequence of high-octane tennis that had the entire crowd on their feet well before a winner was finally decided. Eala eventually showed her grit by closing out the match on her 5th attempt at a match point. When the final ball hit the court, the stadium erupted with an energy that felt more like a championship final than a second-round match. Outside in the tournament village, hundreds of Filipino supporters were gathered around massive outdoor screens, waving their national flags high. They held up signs that read, "Laban Alex," a Tagalog phrase meaning, "Fight Alex," and celebrated her triumph with pure joy. Eala walked to the center of the court for her interview and addressed the fans, switching momentarily into her native Tagalog. She shared that during the intensity of the tie-break, she looked up and realized how many people were truly praying for her success. She felt she had to leave everything on the court for them, creating a poignant moment that was destined to go viral across social media. Within 24 hours, the conversation in the tennis world shifted from just the victory to what this win actually symbolized for the sport. In the immediate aftermath of the Paolini upset, 2 major developments began to unfold at the exact same time. Sports media outlets began a serious debate about whether Eala had already become the biggest individual draw in women's tennis. Meanwhile, tournament organizers faced a wave of criticism for their decision to have her open the night session rather than close it. Her quarterfinal match against Coco Gauff became the center of a very specific and legitimate logistical concern. Filipino fans watching from their home country were facing a late-night start time of 11 in the evening for the first match of the Dubai session. If Eala opened the night, her home fans could watch at a reasonable hour, but the following match featuring Elina Svitolina risked having a half-empty arena. The potential consequence of that decision was a sparse crowd for the subsequent match between Elina Svitolina and Antonia Ruzic. The stadium would be drained of the electric energy that Eala's fans had provided, presenting a scheduling puzzle with no easy solution for the tour. This entire controversy highlighted how a single athlete's massive star power could fundamentally rewrite the logistical playbook of a professional tournament. On the previous evening, following her third-round victory on that same center court stage, the atmosphere remained remarkably tense. Gauff actually took the time to apologize to the Filipino fans for the long wait to see their star, even though the crowd was never unfriendly toward her. It was simply a case of the audience having their hearts and emotional focus entirely elsewhere for the duration of the night session. While Gauff handled the situation with a lighthearted sense of humor, the core message was clear that one player had permanently shifted the traditional tournament dynamic. The highly anticipated showdown with Gauff on February 19th did not unfold as Eala had hoped it would. She suffered a loss of 6-0, 6-2 in just over an hour, appearing visibly exhausted in a way that puzzled many spectators watching. Her serve, which had been a formidable weapon in her previous match, unfortunately crumbled under the pressure of the elite competition. She managed to win only 32% of the points on her first serve and 40% on her second delivery during the match. When facing an opponent with the immense caliber of Gauff, those statistics were simply never going to be enough to secure a victory. Even with the lopsided score, Eala departed the court to a thunderous standing ovation that matched the intensity of her biggest wins. In her post-match comments, Gauff was very gracious, admitting she was fully aware that the majority of the crowd was there specifically to support Eala. She joked that she had to pretend the cheers were for her to maintain her focus, yet she admitted the packed arena's energy was helpful regardless. Goff also praised Eala as a fierce competitor, noting that she never felt truly safe even with a 6-0 lead because of Eala's known capabilities. Jessica Pegula, who was observing the tournament closely, described Eala's recent rise and performance as nothing short of amazing. She was impressed by how a 20-year-old could pack out stadiums while handling such immense global attention with such poise and maturity. Steve Johnson echoed this sentiment on a popular podcast, stating that Eala is currently the hottest ticket in the sport despite her current ranking. He pointed out that seeing a two-time Grand Slam champion like Goff play without the crowd's full backing was an extraordinary sight. He concluded that the atmosphere surrounding her matches was simply not normal for a typical professional tennis tournament. Roughly 2 weeks after the Dubai event ended, Martina Navratilova spoke with the tour website before the start of the big tournaments in March. When asked about Eala's potential for the upcoming events, she immediately labeled the young player as being exceptionally crafty on the court. She praised the effectiveness of Eala's left-handed variety, but noted that her serve still required significant technical development to reach the next level. Navratilova suggested she needs more pace and a heavier kick on her serve, while also needing to maintain her physical presence against elite opponents. This advice carried immense weight coming from a legend whose own serve is considered one of the most technically perfect in history. Her critique was far from a dismissal. Rather, it was a sign of deep respect for Eala's burgeoning talent and future potential. It was the type of rigorous, detailed analysis that Navratilova only gives to players she believes have the potential for true greatness. By February 23, 2026, just 4 days after her loss to Goff, Eala jumped 16 spots to a career-high rank of 31. She is currently positioned as the 32nd seed for Indian Wells, a remarkable climb considering she was outside the top 100 just a year ago. Her ascent has been nothing short of relentless, occurring alongside a cultural phenomenon that no numerical ranking could ever truly quantify. Martina Navratilova witnessed something at the Australian Open back in January that simply defied explanation through standard tennis analytics. She observed that same spark again within the data emerging from Dubai in February, and by March 2nd, she was doing more than just praising a prospect. She was attempting to wrap her head around a spectacle that center court had never quite experienced in this specific capacity before. Even with her decades of experience, she had never seen anything like it. So if this analysis provided a fresh perspective, please subscribe to our channel. Every single video we produce dives into the intricate details that standard highlights overlook to create something truly worth your attention. In the modern landscape of professional tennis, the most compelling and deep narratives are almost never the ones found on the surface. Ultimately, the most impactful stories in this sport are rarely the ones that the final scoreboard communicates to the world.